Welcome to the show. This is Project Duplicity. We'll be discussing the paranormal activity that goes around the world from the past to the present. Um, this is your host, Zach. My co-host is Meyer.
What up?
So a little bit about myself. I've always been fascinated about extraterrestrials, space, UFOs. As a kid, when X-Files came out, it really gravitated my mind of thinking about the unknown. I watched 2 episodes, freaked the fuck out. I got so scared that it actually made my mom cancel the show, or like not cancel the show, but just made me not, like I couldn't watch it anymore. But that's why I'm like very interested in this, and I'm gonna let my co-host Meyer tell a little bit about himself.
So I'm Meyer. For me, I'm just kind of a curious guy, whether it's aliens, space, I mean, you name it. I always just want to learn more about stuff. It's really hard for me to take a side on anything in particular. I'm kind of a factual based person, but even nowadays, people can edit video, pictures, all that stuff. So even the things that we call facts can easily be not factual. So that's kind of where my standpoint is on everything. But for me, whether aliens are real or not, I don't really know, but like they definitely give me chills just thinking about certain things. And when people talk about it, it's definitely a really exciting thing. So yeah, I'm really excited to be part of the show.
Yeah, well, tonight we're going to be talking, discussing. You can clearly see on the screen. We're going to be talking about the Dyatlov Pass Incident. In English, Dyatlov, I guess, translates to Devil Pass Incident. And this was like a very famous incident in Russia. It's still spoken today, and a lot of people don't believe what the government was talking about. So, a little bit about this case. It covers the paranormal. It covers government cover-ups. It covers a little bit about UFOs and the Abominable Snowman, and we'll be covering discussing everything about that, all the theories, what the government, and the background of this particular case, and that's pretty much what we'll be discussing tonight. Further that along that we go, always hit that follow button. You can click on the about page on the channel. You can click on the Discord channel. Go to the Discord waiting room, and we'll be accepting callers a little later. Well, first, let's dive into this case. All right, so this happened in the 1959 February. Right, so it was 10 skiers that were going to the northern Urals of Oblast, Soviet Union, and these were very professional skiers. They were they did like rigorous training. It was 8 males, 2 females. So the expedition pretty much started at January 25th, right? So they started at January 25th, and they tracked all the way down to January 31st to resupply at the edge of at a campsite that was below the ridge of Dyatlov Pass. So they pitch a tent late at night. They get lost in a snowstorm, right, Meyer?
Yep, still here.
Okay, so they get lost in the snowstorm that you can see in the picture. This was like one of the last pictures that we're taking while they kind of veered off of where they were, but from losing, they already lost a lot of daylight, so they end up pitching up a tent a little ways away from the tree line on the
Do
hill.
you have a map of this? I mean, that would be helpful.
Yeah. All right. So let me
For
get
the viewers.
the map up. All right. So here's another picture of them. This was when they were first starting the expedition. So here's the map right here. Okay. So this is their campsite right here. that you can clearly see on the thing. This is the storage house of where they happened to start. You know, that's the last known that they like did their stock supplies when they were traveling back. And this is where they pitched up the tent. They were so pretty much. Let's. Sorry about that. I'm kind of like scrambling a little bit.
You're fine.
All right. So, at the night, what's so like pretty interesting about this case is when so they pitched the tent up there on the 31st of night, and now this like it gets about negative 25 Celsius to negative 30 Celsius degrees below temperature, and so it's rigorous up there. And this mountain is called Kolot Mountain. The natives in that area call it the Mountain of the Dead, and so it's a very superstitious area. So,
do you have like a backstory on why they think it's superstitious?
I don't have the backstory. I didn't really do a lot of research, but that was one of the things that were mentioned in the report. Because when we start going into the investigation portion of it, they're going to be talking about this. All right, so mainly at night of the 31st, these 9 travelers. So it started off with 10 travelers, but before they even reached their campsite, the storage house, one of the people had to back off because he had too much pain, so he couldn't continue on. So the other 9 continued on the track. They stayed up, and mainly they were supposed to travel all the way back to hold on, let me pull up they were supposed to travel back and make contact once they hit the storage house using Morse code, right? Of letting them know that they were fine and they were making it all the way back to where they began. So, the visit high was the area where they were supposed to travel back to and make contact. So it ends up being about 2 weeks after, and people started getting worried. And so they sent an investigation up there. So the investigation was pretty extreme. So I'm going to show a couple pictures about the investigation. So here's one of the tents that they had. And the crazy thing about this, the tent, was when they were going through it, it looks like, Meyer, to you, it looks kind of like that it just, snow fell on it, trampled, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's like nothing really.
Okay, well, the tent was was cut out from the inside. Like if the people that were staying in the tent were trying to run from something, right?
Mm.
So, and these bodies, right? And so they ran out, right? So they cut themselves out of the tent and they start running down the hills, like away from the...
Is there footsteps to confirm that?
Yeah, there's footsteps. So they cut themselves out of the tent and they start traveling to the tree line, right? And so one of the head leader of the expedition, the skiers trekking expedition, is Dyatlov Pass. So him, Sobandin, and sorry, these are Russian names, so I might be butchering a little bit, and Komohorgrav were all found pretty close to each other, right? Those 3 were all found close. And so when the investigation was happening, they noticed that the tent was ripped up from the inside, and they started tracking the footsteps, right? So that led them to the first 3 bodies, okay? And then so they ripped up the tent, they ran down the slope. Investigators said that the tent had been cut from the inside. The remains of... So further up, there were remains of a fire underneath a cedar with the branches, which I will show you.
Real quick.
Yeah.
So, like, go back to that other slide, I guess, with
Wait.
the map and the mountains and pass.
Okay.
So, do we know how far it is from the tent to where the first body was found?
Yeah, so from the tent to the first body was about 90.93 kilometers away, right?
Okay.
So, but for the rest of the bodies were even further, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, some of them were in the ravine of 75 meters away, right, from the charcoal tree that they found.
Sure.
They found a tree with burnt. So the bodies were from a distance of 300, 480, 638 meters, right? So these people ran out, and when they ran out, and these are like professional skiers, they ran out with no clothing at all. Some of them had no clothing, okay? Some of them had some clothing on them of like mixed clothing. It's like, so these three travelers right here, right up on the top, they head away from the tent. They start heading back to the tent. Okay? So that's a weird thing too. But the others start scrambling and going away from the tent.
Are you saying simultaneously or at separate times?
Well, these three were all found. Okay, so Dyatlov, Sullivan, and Komagurova were all kind of traveled together from what the investigators were showing.
Okay.
All right, so they did an examination of all four bodies in May, right? And they shifted the narrative of the incident. The three of the hikers had fatal injuries, right? Thiovics, right here, they had a major skull injury. And Dubina and Zola Trav also had major chest injuries, right? Fractures to the chest. And according to Boris, one of the investigators, the force required to cause such a damage would have been from an extreme high. It would have to be extremely highly like impactful cause to cause some of these injuries. Okay.
So an example of that would be like
a car crash,
with a hammer.
No, like a car crash, like extreme, like impact, like a car crash, or like if you jumped off of a 3-story and did a fucking willy flop, right?
Yeah.
On your belly. And notably, the bodies had been no external wounds associated with the bone fractures, as if they had been subjugated to a high level pressure, right? So like a really high pressure, like just pressing on them. All four bodies were found at the bottom of the creek, and the running stream of the water had soft tissue damage to their head and face. For example, Dubina was missing her tongue, eyes, part of her lips, by the way, which is weird. Okay? As well as facial tissue and fragmented of the skull bone.
And none of those parts were found, right?
None of those parts were found. Okay? While Zolotrov had his eyeballs missing. And Alexander, his eyebrows were also missing too. Okay? And now this is the weird thing. Okay? This is where
As if this wasn't already
This is already weird. This is already weird. But this is where it kind of turns a little bit. They scanned the area, okay? And they had high levels of radiation on two of the bodies. Okay?
Which two?
Which two were they? I'm going to be so on this one right here, it was on Ludmila, which is Dumnar. She's the one that had her tongue missing, her eyes, parts of her lips, as well as facial tissue and fragment of the skull bone, tongue removed while she was still alive. Okay? from what the coroner said, like the people, the doctors, when they were investigating the bodies. And she had the radiation. Alexander Kovatrov died of hyperthermia, exposed skull bone, right? Broken nose, and also had tested positive for radioactive radiation. The wristband on his sweater and lower parts of his trouser tested radioactive on it. Where Ludmila, it was the brown sweater that tested, and her underpants that tested radioactive. And that's where it kind of like turns a little bit. And so each of these, all right, so each of these people, there's 4 of them. A lot of them, well, most of them had hyperthermia, right? Which hyperthermia, if you didn't know, like could heat up your body. And so, but that doesn't explain why they ripped it off and ran without clothing, right? So that's where it kind of gets like a little fishy. Now, so when
There's a lot of evidence basically saying that they were in a hurry.
They were in a hurry. Now, so when they were so they found 4 of the bodies, right? And they thought that they first opened it up as a murder case, okay?
That just crossed my mind too.
They opened it up as a murder case and started doing the search. And then later on, they found the other bodies next to the charred fire, right? So they started a fire, old cedar, like branch broken up, 5 meters high, suggests that the hikers had to climb up to look for something or to hide from somebody. So like there was charred marks on a tree 5 meters high. And they also set a blaze down below. Okay. So it seems like they were hiding from something. They were running from something. Who knows what that is, right? And then so, in the diagram that I have up, those are traces of the footprints from 8 or 9 people wearing socks, a single shoe, or barefoot. The investigators said that the hikers fled the tent on their own accord. So they left. They weren't like someone was out there, animals or something, and forced out, right? So the footprints that they found were their own, that they believed that were their own. And so do you have any questions right now, or?
Well,
or
I
any
guess
thoughts?
how can they say that they left on their own accord when it was cut from the inside?
Yeah, that's also an interesting part. But you got to remember, what's so interesting about this case is that the government was conducting this investigation. One of the people would
So this
not.
wasn't like their local.
This was
police
not
force?
local police force or anything like this. This was the Soviet Union investigators. And the thing is, one of the investigators were so thorough about their investigation that they would not sign off on what their superiors were telling them to sign off on. Pretty much they wanted that none of the evidence were adding up, right? Why would they flee their tent? Why would they run bare naked? These people have been doing ski trekking for quite a long time. So just to take a little break from here, we'll pick it back up. But if anyone has any testimonies about any experiences that they've like witnessed, whether it be paranormal or anything, or just thoughts on this case, feel free. Click on the Discord channel and just click on one of the waiting rooms and we'll pull you right in. So far, Meyer, what's your thoughts on this whole case?
Well, how much is there left to discuss with their investigation? Like, how many more details are there left?
Oh, there's a lot more details to keep on going. I have not even touched the surface of it. That's the thing. This is the thing about this. This is what this is a very interesting topic about this.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you what I think now, and we can just continue with what they're saying.
I want to hear what you're thinking, because you said that you need a lot more facts, and
Yeah.
so what is your overall generalization on it?
Well, it's definitely very odd that like the tent, that's a big one right there. Like they cut out of the tent the zipper. I mean, we haven't heard anything about the zipper. It was a zipper broken or something. So yeah, I mean, if these are experienced people, I mean, they're not just gonna ruin their shelter like that unless, there's like
Yeah.
a dire need to do that. So that is a main point for me. And then it's very interesting that three of the bodies that were found closest to the tent, those three done hypothermia. So, it makes me wonder, like, maybe you said this, I'm not sure, but did they all leave at the same time? Was it separate groups? Is that detail in
Well,
there?
well, from my understanding, they all kind of left kind of all at the same time. They just cut up the tents. So I'll show you another picture of. So this is the first one of the pictures of the tents, right?
Right.
This is another picture of another of the tents, more ripped up. You see their skis are all torn apart, right? What causes skis to just tear up like that? Look at that. Look at the pole right there. It's broken, right? For keeping balance.
And it's pretty much safe to assume that these are like investigative photos, so they didn't touch it. Like it's not like they put the skis or anything up like that, right?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about this is that the um these pictures, not all of them were leaked out at the beginning. Remember, this is the Soviet Union at the time. They kept
Yeah.
everything very close to the chest. So they
And those are
really,
torn to shreds, man.
yeah, they're torn to shreds. They ripped it up. They were in a panic, dude. Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about whatever they saw. Doesn't matter. You're in a panic, and you cut it out, and you don't even put on clothes. What the fuck are you running from? That's the question.
Right.
That's the question right there. Is like, well, what are you running from? What is it that you're trying to get from? Right?
Well, and we haven't really covered this yet, but like one of the theories is an avalanche, but like you don't have time to run from an avalanche.
So here's another picture, right? So here, see in the background, like right there, that's the tree line where they ran to.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you see, this is the tent. It's like, if it, that's what the government ended up saying, the Russian government. And this is the article, and they try to back it up again about the avalanche. But we'll be diving into the avalanche and the new foundings that they found. We'll dive that into it a little bit. We're going to talk about all the different theories.
Yeah.
So those tents look like, well, they cut it from the inside. The poles fell down, and it doesn't look like a lot of snow on that.
Well, and here's the thing, like I'm no avalanche expert by any means, but like if there was an avalanche and that's what they're trying to say, wouldn't the tents have been carried down the hill and they wouldn't be torn up to shreds? They'd be crushed, if anything. But I
Yeah.
don't think they'd be torn up into shreds like that. And if an avalanche were to tear something up into shreds, the pieces would be like scattered. You know what I mean? This is really concentrated.
Yeah, it's really
So I don't know.
concentrated, and not only that, it's just weird how you would think that it would just be local investigators doing this, not
Yeah.
the actual Soviet Union investigating. It's like the FBI investigating this shit, not just like local police. Like, yeah, let's just go send out the park rangers to look for someone trapped under snow, right? You know,
Angela brings up a good point. Like something could have been in the tent with them.
maybe, who knows? But there was
My
these.
theory is like something was on the outside by the entrance. That's why they cut out.
I don't-
'Cause the
I don't-
zipper area was defended by something, maybe, or something.
Yeah, that could be it right there, and that makes another brings up another question. So here's what the report suggested, right? So this is the final report. So the 6 of the group members died of hypothermia, and 3 of them fatal injuries. There were no indications of other people nearby on Kalaskahi apart from the 9 travelers. The tents had been ripped up, open from within. The victims had died 6 to 8 hours after their last meals. Okay, so that tells you something right there too. That one, they had enough time to, if it was just purely hyperthermia, they would have died pretty quickly, especially in negative 25 to 30. All right. So traces from the camp showed that all group members left the campsite on their own accord on foot, right? Some levels of radiations were found on 1 to 2 victims.
I got nothing for that. Radiation, that's just a whole new thing.
To dispel the theory of an attack by the indigenous Mansi people, which were the natives around that area, stated that the fatal injuries of the 3 bodies could not have been caused by human beings. Okay, and this is in the report, because the force of the blows had been too strong and no soft tissue had been damaged, right? So soft tissue is just your skin, right? Until you like cut it and go deeper, right? I might be a little wrong on that, but that's from my understanding of it. But released documents contained no information about the condition of the skiers' internal organs, right? So that, remember, the investigation did not release anything about their organs, okay? And of course, there was no survivors. It started off with 10 and 9 died because the one ended up comping out because he had injuries, right? It's a good choice on his end, or well, not a good choice, but luckily he had injuries to prevent him to travel. So at the time, the official conclusion was that the group members had died because of compelling natural forces, right? The inquest officially ceased in May of 1959 as a result of the absence of any guilty party. The files were sent to a secret archive, right? In 97, it was revealed that negatives from the cameras were kept in a private archive of one of the investigators. So the pictures that we're showing was released in 2009 to the public domain. So like there was a lot of lawsuits that happened because of this case. All right. So, all right, we got a caller in. So let's bring up the caller. All right. It seems like Bryn. Hello, Bryn. Welcome to the show. Can you hear us? Hello, Bryn. It shows that your microphone's muted.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I'm on now. Am I on?
Yeah, you're on. Welcome to welcome to the show.
Well, hi. So exciting just to hear some of the things that you're talking about, because I have never seen a UFO, but I actually saw what I figured was an alien, a person, from like you hear about little green men.
Really? That's fair.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. Well, tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, I was only 9 years old, and I was walking home from school. And there was this old post office that had been shut down because there was a new post office. So I'd always look in just because there was like some wire up, like a wire fencing to keep anyone from going into the old building. So I would look in, and all of a sudden I looked in one day, and there was this is weird, and it doesn't even sound right. But anyway, it is what it is. But there was this man there, little man, and he was green. And of all things, he had black hair, and I could see eyes, but it didn't look like a space suit. It was different. But anyway, and this is another thing that I sort of hate to say, but it's just what it is, because who would think a spaceman would be standing in front of a mirror combing his hair, like an alien, a green man. I know, it's like, you wouldn't think they'd be doing that. But anyway, that's what he was doing. So a friend of mine was across the street, and I said, "Hey, Floyd, come over here. Look, there's a green man here." And so he ran across the street, and he looked into the room. And like a typical 4th grader, he started throwing rocks at this green man. Well, then all of a sudden, the green man just like disappears. And I guess he sort of transports himself, because over in the corner behind some metal, the roofing things, the metal tin roof things, all of a sudden he just sticks his head up behind that. And so he just transported from standing in front of this, like it was a post with a mirror on it. And then he was behind these the tin roofing. So anyway, then all of a sudden he disappeared again, and then the back door just swung open by itself, and then it closed, and that was it. That was my experience. But I went home and I said, I saw a green man, and I'd say, do y'all believe me? And they'd say, yeah, we'll believe you. And I says, no, you don't believe me, but because I figured no one would probably believe me, but yet I know what I saw.
What year was this?
Well, it's about 1956, and I did do some research a few years back. I haven't talked about it in decades, but I did some research, and there were some sightings of UFO sightings in South Central Texas. That was Lakey, Texas, in about 1956 and 1957. So I don't know.
What type of region is Lakey, Texas? What you said? It's South Texas.
Well, it's South Central. It's about 80 miles out of San Antonio, but it's in a valley. In fact, there's mountains. I mean, little mountains all around it. Back when I was in school, we couldn't even get nothing but snow on TV. They didn't have cables, and even the reception for TV was really bad back there. We were in the middle of the mountains,
So it was more of like a hill country or
Yeah,
rural area.
yeah.
So it's very secluded at that time, away from
Oh,
major
yeah.
cities, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so
For
when
sure.
you saw this alien, would you say that he's an alien or
Well, I mean, that's what I
extraterrestrial,
thought.
or was it
well, I
like
don't
maybe
know.
a human? Like it could not be a human, right? Like
No, it could not have, because
and about
he
how tall
transported.
was he?
Not very tall, I would say.
Was he
You know,
shorter than
like-
you or taller?
Well, no, because I was a child, but I would think he would probably not be more than like 5'3" or something like
5'3".
that. Not very tall. Yeah.
And he you said black hair, and you said that he was slicking his hair back, or
No, he had a comb. He was combing
he's combing his hair.
Yeah, which is weird. I admit.
It's
I admit
very different. That's the first time that I've ever heard anything about an extraterrestrial combing his hair. But
Combing their hair.
I know that sounds very odd. But the thing about that this sounds very peculiar is that how does something transport through a building and open up a door?
I don't know.
Even
And
touching it.
yeah, and the thing is, I mean, he was standing there, and then when the kid threw rocks at him, he all of a sudden was gone, and then pow, he snapped up and he looked above. Then I saw him again, but he had transported himself over to the corner of the building.
Did you guys make eye contact? Did you guys
I don't think so.
locked eyes,
Well-
or did you get to see any other than his hair and him combing or doing the motion of like maybe it wasn't a comb, maybe he was just brushing his hair or something, right?
Or something. I don't know. He could have been.
But
couldn't. You know what I mean?
Do you any type of facial expression that you saw from this creature? Or
No,
being?
I had a feeling. I really didn't. Because I was just like sort of in shock. It was green. You always heard about green men, and then he disappeared because of the rocks being thrown at him. And then the big old door. It was a big old door.
When the rocks were thrown, right?
Yeah.
Did it go straight through the body, or did or did it bounce off of him, or did it miss him?
Well, I don't know. It got his attention because then all of a sudden he disappeared. And this was a pretty good rock thrower, I imagine, because we all was raised together, and he was, you know what I mean. But anyway, he disappeared, and so it did get his attention. And then when he looked over, he looked at us over the tin. And actually, that tin was laying down, so he wasn't too tall because his head was just barely over the tin. But, at the time, I didn't get any expression, but I know he was facing me. But he didn't. I mean, I wasn't scared, and it was like he didn't do anything to us.
What was and so you only saw green skin, no clothing or anything like that, just the black hair?
Right.
And what type of green? You're talking about forest green, light green, or?
Or
I
do you
can't really remember the
it
exact
was, it was
green?
pretty like almost iridescent. You know what I mean? It was almost like you see which is weird. I mean, you know what I mean? It's almost like what you see when they put it in the cartoons or draw a picture of it in, you know what I mean? But that's what it was. It is what it is. And I just never forgot it and I was just determined. I wanted people to believe me. And then I never did really know if they believed me or not. You know what I mean? But still, it was there.
I mean, during that time, before even going into space,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that the adults during that time were probably like, "Man, she's just seeing things," or just
Right.
making up a story, and they just went with it. But what did you ever have contact with the friend that was also throwing the rocks, like later on in life, or ever discuss this with them again?
Yeah.
I didn't, but he met with a accidental drowning. He was fishing,
Oh,
and so and I was moved away, and so I would have, I would have liked to, but he and I were the only ones that were there. And back then also we didn't have TV, we didn't know about the news, we didn't, and it wasn't any time. It was in the 1960s before they,
yeah. So you couldn't be
when
you couldn't be
Kennedy's.
really influenced by any media source or
No, not really. We
yeah
didn't even have media. We watched
or
we didn't listen. We'd listen to the radio and hear
yeah, but
the
you couldn't
Grand
have
Ole
any like
Opera.
real imaging of like
No, no
a
pictures.
spaceman or anything like that during the what year did you say that? Sorry.
Well, we know we didn't have any pictures like that. We didn't watch any TV. We listened to only
No,
radio. I can remember
sorry about that. What was the year that this occurred? Sorry. Around.
1956, about
Okay, so
1956.
not a lot of like during that time, from my understanding, there's a lot of cowboys and Indians, showing not a lot of
Yeah,
space activity going on during that time.
no.
So I don't think that you would be able to be influenced, in my personal view, about an extraterrestrial being. That's
No, it wasn't even in my thought process. I hadn't seen pictures. I hadn't read about any extraterrestrials or anything like that. You know what I mean?
And you said that you did a
And
little research on the subject matter about UFO sightings in that general area. That's very interesting to me. What did you find about that particular area?
well, that there had been a few, but most of the ones in Texas were over by Lubbock, Texas. But there had been some sightings in Texas around that time. I didn't even know if there'd been any sightings because, well, I don't even know if people were aware of. I don't even know when that Roswell thing was. I don't know if it was before or after that or what.
I think they happened in the 40s, late 40s.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah,
See, I didn't. Yeah, I wasn't for sure about
which
that.
they claim that it was like weather balloons.
But we didn't. We didn't have TV. We didn't have that kind of thing. I read books from the library, and we listened to the radio. So it was just, but it was weird. I've never forgotten it because I knew it was something that wasn't human.
Yeah.
And and since then, you hear about the aliens, but the hair part, that's what just made me think, that made me think that sounded unbelievable because why would I make up someone combing their hair?
Well, that's
Can I butt in here?
yeah. Go ahead, Meyer.
Just a couple questions. So, I guess, are you suggesting that this thing teleported, or?
Oh, yes, because he was there and then he wasn't. And then the next time I saw him, he was behind these tins that were catty corner in the corner. And it was just it was like a bunch of, it was lumber and wall stuff just laying around in these tin things were in the corner, catty corner. Next time I see him, he was out in the middle of the room. And then next time I see him, he disappeared and then he was over in the corner. And so,
So, like,
like 10 foot or
distance,
something.
what, 10 feet? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
And then didn't see him at all. And then this big door, I'm talking like double tin door in the back, opened up by itself. No, I didn't feel like it's by itself. I felt like that the green man, had actually made himself disappear. And the door opened, creak, and then it closed, and then that was it.
So as far as like features, I mean, you said the black hair, the green skin, was like everything else pretty much human looking, or are you not really sure?
No, not at all. It was almost like there was nothing in the nose or mouth area, but maybe a little bit of something in the eye, and then that black hair. I mean, I'm cold black as could possibly be.
So you're saying like there is no nose and mouth even?
I didn't even see any indication of a nose or mouth.
Wow.
How about the eyes? Were they a little more wider, or could you even tell about that section too?
I couldn't tell that much, and to tell you the truth, everything happened so quickly, and I was just thinking, oh, they just transported themselves. Oh, he's combing his hair. That really and truly, oh, the green, the combing the hair, and the transporting, and then the disappearing, and then the door opening, then closing. That's my main things. You know what I mean?
So it's all happening, what, like a minute maybe?
Well, it took a little while. My friend was across the street, And that guy's just combing his hair. And when I called him, he walked all the way across the street and he came and looked. And then he went out and got a few little rocks, and it was like a huge, what would have been a huge window, like, except it wasn't a window, but an opening in the building that was just had a big old fence on it, like fence that had wire that's 4x4, where there's a lot of space. So he just started throwing the rocks, and the rocks went into the building. And so that didn't take very long. I mean, the whole thing probably didn't take more than 3 minutes or two.
Okay. Do you think rocks was a good decision at that time?
That's just what he did. You know what I mean? He's a
Yeah.
kid. He didn't have anything else. He sees something green and strange and otherworldly, and
It's like a
that was
reaction,
just and
self-defense
just
almost.
just kids back then. That's what they did. They threw rocks and they skipped rocks and they just outdoorsy type things, and it was weird, but anyway, it didn't kill us. It didn't have a gun or anything. And it didn't, I mean, they have technology. They probably could have done, if they were mean or wanted to harm us, I'm sure they could have. The man.
Yeah.
And I had a feeling a man, but I don't know why, because the hair was long, actually.
It could just be them, or
yeah,
who knows what.
But the hair was like, if it was a woman or a man, the hair would go all the way down to like past the shoulder, so it was long hair, sort of long hair.
Okay.
And that was
were
before.
you like afraid at the time, or like what were some of the emotions that you think you might have felt at that time?
It's weird. I wasn't scared. I was just very interested and very like shocked, sort of like, wow, what is this? But for some reason or other, I was not scared.
And did you ever go back to the location and like look around for anything?
Oh yeah, I always, to me, I don't know why I was interested in that. I always used to think this was the old post office that used to be here, probably when there were cowboys and Indians, and I would just look in and, I'd think, well, maybe I'll see something. You couldn't go in, but it was locked up.
Oh, okay. Huh.
But I would just always look in. I had to walk home. I had to walk by that place every day.
So did the other individual and you ever talk about it after the incident?
We didn't. Well, if we did, I don't remember it, just to say that. I talked to several people over and over and over, like just telling them about it. And my mother would say, I said, do you believe me? She'd say, yeah, I believe you. And I said, no, you don't. You're just saying that to make me feel good.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, because, I really didn't think anyone would believe me. And that was my main thing after it was over, is that no one's going to believe me.
Later on in life, and you said that you shared it with your mom, your family members at the time. Did you keep it a secret for quite a while after that? After when you grew up, or did you I
never really kept it a secret, but I only told it to like my kids and my sisters and my siblings and family, because I wanted them to know, number one, that there was a green man, and that I had actually seen one. And I wanted them to know, because this is information that could be important, Yeah. But I never did tell a whole lot of people. Every once in a while, a subject would come up about extraterrestrials or something, and I would tell a friend, but I've told very few people, because
you're kind of worried about what someone might judge you based off of it, maybe, or think that that's just a crazy story or something, right?
I didn't want them to make light of it, because it was it was real, and I didn't want to have to defend it or anything else, or then say, what were you drinking?
Yeah, were you drinking, or were you
anything.
hallucinating, or
right?
It was just someone dressed in green paint or something, But
right, and it's so obviously not. It was a real. It was something I just never forgot. But then I got to where I didn't talk about it much.
So after the fact, after that incident happened, did it kind of like awaken your mind about like the unknown, what's out there, maybe out in the stars and beyond? Like, or did you kind of just like just went mellow after that? Like, just like let it, allowed it to what it was, and then after that, you just kept on going about your day.
Well, every once in a while I think about it. I do believe in God, and I believe there are things out there, but I believe this was something different. It wasn't like an angel or anything. But for some reason or another, I had no fear. I was very calm. I just wanted people to believe me. That was my main thing, because I was a very intense kid. You know what I mean? And I was, I didn't want to. Of course, I wouldn't want to lie, and so um, I I was at that time, well, I am now too, but extremely religious, and just believed in telling the truth, of course.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was mellow about it, but I just felt like it was great that I got to see something, because I felt like then I did have this knowledge that there were other people besides us with powers that we don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a crazy thing. And this is like a very eye-awakening story. You could take it as face value of like believing in it, or you could just take it as fantasy. But being of the time that it was, of not mainly if it was early stages of television, which you didn't have, it would just be cowboys and Indians. It's people didn't start making sci-fi until after we went to the moon or started traveling, competing for the space program in the 60s.
In fact, in 1960, we had we moved to Austin then, and we had the first color TV, and the only color show was the High Chaparral, a cowboy show. I mean, that was only one thing, and I think maybe some variety show, but no, we just didn't have that. But the thing is, now I don't particularly, if anyone doesn't believe me, it doesn't bother me, now.
Well, that's always good. You shouldn't let anyone bother you about your story, or you know what I mean, because if you believe that it's real, it is. I personally, I think that you really did see that person combing his hair.
I did, yeah. I did. That's what makes me mad. Why was he combing his hair? Why couldn't he have done something else?
It's kind of like if it was the Fonzie of aliens at the time,
Yes, there you go. And they didn't even have Fonz yet.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just trying to be like cool. But I appreciate your call. I hope that you finish the rest of our topic tonight. And
I certainly will.
And always feel free to join the channel if you always have your thoughts about the topic that we're talking about. And so, just to get your take on it, what do you think about the topic that we're currently talking about? Just to get your quick step.
I think it's very interesting, and the different photos and things that you've had, and everything. It was. I'm very interested in the supernatural. I'm interested in knowledge. I like learning. I like, you know what I mean. And so, and it's interesting. It's get your mind off politics, get your mind off COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
well, if you think that this is interesting, I'm going to tell you the rest of the story is going to take a quick turn.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Well, it was nice talking to you, Bryn. I hope that you have a wonderful night and you continue joining this the project Duplicity, because this channel is all about trying to awaken people about maybe the possibility of the unknown, the phenomenons around the world that's happened in the past, the present. I appreciate your phone call.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You have a good night.
And good night to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, Maya, that was a pretty interesting call right there. That was very interesting right there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that one.
It kind of changes your perception, right? A little bit. It happened in the 1950s. That's a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a long time ago. Obviously, there's not a lot of information. She wasn't able to go in there and do like a full investigation or anything like that.
Well, yeah, that's 9 years old, and who knows about this, the certain situation. But all right, so we went over the details last, right? So these are the theories, right? That they go on, right? So in hold on, let me just find my last spot on my footnotes. Sorry about that. Hold on one second. All right, so here's some of the explanations. So one is the original explanation was American Skeptic, right, was author Benjamin Rutherford suggested an avalanche as more plausible, right? But so he this is what he stated. He's stated that the group woke up in a panic, cut their way out of the tent, scattered an avalanche immediately. They were poorly clothed because they had been sleeping and ran to safety nearby the woods where the trees would help slow oncoming snow and the darkness, right? But it was too cold and they were all frozen to death before they could locate their tent in the darkness. At some point, some of their clothing had been recovered or swatched from the dead. But at any rate, the group of the four whose bodies were mostly severely damaged were caught in the avalanche and buried under 4 meters of snow, right? The Britain's tongue was likely removed by scavengers and ordinary predators, right? Unordinary predators, sorry about that. And so that was his thinking of it. Some of the other takes off of it, too, was katabatic winds, right?
What does that mean?
It's so katabatic wind is pretty much like when the wind force pushes heavily on snow. So where they were camping at was closer to the top of the mountain, right? So when the winds push down on it, it's not going to do a heavy avalanche, but it's going to do somewhat of an avalanche to start pushing up on their tents. So they would end up getting more scared, rip out their tents, snow's coming down a little bit, but it's not a lot, and then they freaked out by a little bit of snow and ended up running, right? And so that's why they cut their tents and ran. Another one was...
No, that's not it. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah. Another one was infrasound, right? Another hypothesis which was published in 2013. It's called the Dead Mountain. Was that the wind was going around Saklat, which is the mountain, and it produced infrasound capable of introducing panic attacks in humans, right?
Really?
So it made them get overwhelmed really quickly from the hypertension of the infrasound. Okay, and so that's what caused them to panic, open up the tent, cut themselves out, run out crazy, and then the hyperthermia kind of went much further. Another theory too was military testing, right? And which would kind of talk about the Soviet Union because this is an indigenous area. No one lives around these areas. Instead of nomadic tribal people, right? Around the areas. So during the time of Cold War, they were testing out radiological weapons, right? And so this, that could have caused somewhat of a small avalanche. That could explain some of the radiation, right? So that was one theory right there. Another one was so now this is where it starts turning into more of the paranormal, extraterrestrials. So at the night of the event, there was people that were staying further away. I'll show the map right here. Hold up, let me just pull it up. So past a storage house, going to more further to the right. So just to give you a general idea, past a storage house is one of their final destinations that they were trying to make it to, right? Which, let me pull up the name real quick. Sorry about that. I'm just going through my footnotes real quick. It was the 31st precinct, right next to Visahay, right? So Visahay was further up away from the storage house, right? So what they saw up in the sky during that incident between February 1st and February 2nd was orange orbs glowing, floating above the night, right? Like floating, you know, they claim that it's UFOs that were hovering over that zone. And see, now this is the interesting part too, is the Mansi people, which they were investigated on killing, you know, or like possibly trying to kill these people. They have always talked throughout their time about the glowing lights around Mountain of the Dead. Okay. So, they see, so like they count like there's glowing lights right around there, right? And so if it was the glowing lights and it was UFOs, that could explain a little bit about like maybe radiation, and maybe they hear these sounds of the UFOs and they start running out, right? Like in a panic, right? They don't, it's unknown, right? Like maybe they poke their heads out really quick, or they start seeing lights shine through their tents and they get in a panic and they run, right? You know, that's,
So who's accounting for the lights?
it's the people from a nearby village that was like a little bit further away from the storage house, which,
So they're claiming that they saw lights at the same time all this other stuff happened.
yeah.
Okay.
So they're accounting for the lights around the time that they dispersed from their tents. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right. So mainly, that's the reason why some of the theorists believe that it was extraterrestrial, that there was UFOs that were around the section. They pulsed the area around, right? Like from the pulsation of, like, you know, I don't know, like low aircraft, and they started seeing lights. They run, and they start running from something, right? Like in a scared manner, right? And so that's the thing. Like, if you see something that is very unexplained, it makes sense why they were trying to hide from something as well when they were climbing up the tree, right?
Yeah.
And that's the interesting part. Like, why would you run out? Like, these are very educated skiers that've done this type of trip multiple times in similar conditions in cold weather, and they're running for their lives away from this unknown object. And this is one of the main theories behind it, is they saw this orb, these orange orbs, and they run away from it. And it kind of explains maybe why the government was covering it up. Because I'm going to show you. So, and the screen right here, this is the government.
That was Bigfoot. Go back.
Well, we're going to get to that later. That's the next one. So this is what the government was talking about. This is where they said the wind slab. You got the slab of ice. So the wind slab is the top of the ice, like the top of the snow.
Wait. Look at, so they're saying they put this tent next to a wall of snow, just asking to be engulfed in that.
Yeah, this is the actual incident report that was reported. This is, so I'm going to put the article right here, the Moscow Times, right? Yeah. And so this is the theory that ended up being their explanation is from this model right here, right? So here's the ground surface, right? So don't imagine this right here. This is where they pinched the tit. So this is like originally what it was, right?
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. So the weak layer. So your top part is the wind slab. So that's like the wind pushing down the snow, right? Down the mountain. Then you got your flux, right? Which is in between the wind slab and the slab. Then you got the weak layer, which they put their tent on the base, the ground surface of it. And then so that's where they're saying it ends up that it was a small avalanche went on the tents, right? But if we go back to the pictures,
It does not look like that at all.
here's the pictures. That how's that explained? Also, if it was an avalanche, right? How did they find footsteps in the snow?
Dude, my thing is like they jam the skis into the ground, right?
Yeah.
Those are still standing. The tents are completely shredded. Like this isn't it. Clearly.
I don't think that it could be an avalanche. And the thing is that this report that they recently just published, you saw the date on it. It came out not too long ago, January 28th, 2021, on their final what they think that it is, right? Like what happened. This is an avalanche killed them. It poked out their eyes. It cut their tongue. It had radiation. How is that possible? You know what I mean? Like, how can an avalanche cause all those?
I mean, the tongue was cut out, right? Like it's just gone.
It's just gone.
This isn't like a cut. It's just gone.
And viewers, we would be able
the
to
eyeballs gone.
Viewers, we would be able to show the pictures of the bodies, right? But we can't because Twitch of the gore. We can't show any of the pictures because of the gore. But if you join the Discord channel, you can go right up on top to the Dyatlov Discord. Now, Meyer, if you want to take a look at these pictures right here.
They're really gruesome.
They're very gruesome. We wouldn't be able to show. But if you look at the last picture, that dude has no eyes. Also, these people were in their 20s, right? They were in their 20s or early 30s. I got their dates up here. The oldest person was 38 years old, right? He had 5 broken ribs, eyeballs missing. Some of these people, their hair was turned pitch, like they had black hair and it was gray hair. Yeah. How does that happen? How does
they rapidly like aged or something?
They rapidly aged, kind of like they like so much stress that they went through that their hair went from black to gray in a matter of 5 to 8 hours. That they say that they died from hypothermia, right? And then so one of the other theories based off of this, right, is the abdominal snowman or Bigfoot, right?
Yes.
And so one of the reason why this is kind of touches bases on government cover up, UFOs, extraterrestrials, abdominal snowman. Now this picture that I'm going to be showing right here, it's from their footage, and you might have saw it from previous. But this came from their camera footage, and this came out of the 2009 release of all the photos that the government had since the incident that they published in a separate file. And some alien theorists believe that the abdominal snowman or Bigfoot, which they say that are related, that it's an in-dimensional being, right? Which could make sense on why there was light radiation around the campsite and heavy radiation on some of the bodies that were mutilated, right? So if it's it's an in-dimensional being that, let's just say, I don't know, maybe it's some Stargate or some you know what I mean? Like maybe it's like something that goes in and out, and this is like something that, you know, I don't know. I'm just going off of like some of the theories.
Like force weapon would explain the power of crushing and all that.
Yeah.
Radiation, maybe.
Well, because one thing is that questions your mind is, where did the radiation come from, right?
Right.
There was radiation around the campsite, so the radiation was heavily around the two bodies, the female and the male, right? and there was light radiation around the actual campsite that was going around. And so my thought is, as if it was like this interdimensional being that can travel from their entity to our entity, and maybe they just look like a Bigfoot, but they're actually just more they're smart, but they're just aggressive, right? That could cause harm, like, you know what I mean? Like, just imagine, like, if you were like a very strong being that could just like squeeze someone's rib cages, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to show any type of trauma to the soft skin, And so those are.
So what are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting. This is my personal take on it. Is one. It's during the height of. It's like during one of the during the height of the Cold War, right?
Yeah.
And this is a very sensitive, case that the government didn't want to be leaked out to the U.S. and abroad. Let me see. Angela said, how were the two connected with radiation? Did they possibly live together? Maybe they're closed in radiation them prior to the expedition. Well, this is the thing, Angela, that the radiation was, I will show you right here.
It was on the campsite, you said, as well.
So the two bodies right here, which was Dabina and Alexander, they had the radiation, right? So I'm going to show you the map. So this is where Dabina and Alexander, they were found up the creek past the tree that was lit on fire, right? So mainly the radiation, the light radiation zone was found around here. So it couldn't be clothing that they've had previously, like if they lived in Chernobyl or something, right? And they worked near, radiation, like factory, you know what I mean? Like power plants or anything like that. They found light traces of radiation around the campsite, and they found it very heavily on their clothing, these particular people. And if you go to the Discord channel, Angela, I know the pictures are gruesome, but you will see the two bodies, pictures of the two bodies without their eye sockets and without their tongue. And it shows you that there must have been something, because it looks like they aged, from being 20 something to they've been in the grave for, about a year. It's gruesome what these people went. Oh, we got another caller in. All right. His name is Already Dead. All right. Thank you for joining the channel. Already Dead. What? Can you hear us?
Yo, what's up?
Hey, how are you? What's your thoughts on the subject, or have you experienced anything around this type of paranormal activities? Hello, caller.
Yep.
What do you?
I'll give you some thoughts on.
Yeah. What do you have for us?
Hold on one sec.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, what if this is another thing I've kind of been thinking about right now. How you said it was during the Cold War and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What if this whole story is just a whole fabricated story that never happened, and that all those pictures are just staged pictures, stuff like that, just as a kind of a distraction from the Cold War thing, and to make it look like it's some kind of eerie story to distract from that, and that it's all not real.
Well, I have like I can have a count. I can make one counter to that argument, and like the way that it mainly why would the Russian government go in there to investigate it? First of all, number two, if you really, they were trying to hide it. They weren't trying to make it a distraction. They hid it for several years.
I mean, that would be like a smart thing to do to make it look realistic. Would be to just like say you're investigating it and all that.
Well, these people.
I think it would just take.
Well, the one thing is, we know that they went missing because they weren't just showed up 2 weeks later after the cause, right? Like after they went missing, the expedition, right, that they told, hey, we're going to contact you when we make it back to the campsite through a Morse code. They're the ones that started the investigation. And number two, another thing too is that it started off as a murder case. It did not start off as paranormal or anything like that. It started off as a murder case and went up. And a lot of the people that were doing the investigation at the time, like higher ups, quit the investigation because they did not want to sign off on what their superiors were trying to tell them to sign off on.
I mean, that's just like something I was kind of just thinking, just like with the whole thing, how it's like so many like random different things. It just sounds like a complete, I don't know, just like it would be kind of like something made up.
Well, yeah. Well, the government, okay, so like their explanation at the time was that it was natural causes, right? Whatever that may be. Avalanche. They never said. It was just either it was an avalanche or it was just natural causes. Later on of this year and, of last month, they opened up the case back and like the diagram that I showed in the stream, that it was an avalanche that caused all these incidents, right? Radiation, to their eye sockets being popped out, you know what I mean? To their tongues missing, to a lip being ripped off, to someone having no eyebrows. Like, how does snow cause all that? And these these pictures,
that's obviously ridiculous.
And this is the thing too is, this is an incident that if you were trying to fake, right? If you were the Russian government and you were trying to fake it to make it like a distraction, well, this isn't really like a distraction because this never came out into the United States until later on after the Soviet Union fell.
Well, yeah, I understand that. I mean, I'm not saying that it was like something in the United States. Could be something that they were doing in their own country. My bad.
Well, yeah,
you know what I mean?
I mean, it could be a government cover-up, right? It could be a government cover-up because they were testing maybe radiological weapons up in the mountains.
Yeah,
the thing is, they could have been testing weapons out, right? And they had an accident, and they didn't know about those people, right? They could have been testing bombs or anything like, you know what I mean? And they accidentally killed 9 people, so then they had to come up with say that it was an avalanche, all that stuff, right? And
yeah, because just like that whole story is just like ridiculous. It's just like makes no sense at all. And just like every story they come up with pretty much like makes no sense. So it's like,
well, that's
what makes me think is just like they're lying about it to cover something else up. Or like it never happened, and they just use it as just like some crazy story that like never existed.
So I showed you guys that what the investigation showed right through the map. I also showed how the bodies died, right? And this is all through the investigation. Like they actually have it. Like you can pull up the information up.
Yeah. But couldn't they like fake all those photos though?
Let me chime in here.
Okay.
Okay. If they're trying to cover stuff up, why would they even test for radiation and bring that up? That would make zero
Well,
sense.
maybe I'm not saying that they're covering something up for like some radiation tests or anything. What if they're just making up a whole story for nothing to like maybe in their own country to get people scared about something or like have them worried about something? It it could be used as like a fear tactic thing.
To get people to not go to that area, or like, what are you trying to insinuate? I guess.
Yeah, to not go to that area or like maybe to think that there's something out there like that maybe exists, maybe doesn't exist. Some kind of like how they're saying the Bigfoot or whatever, abominable snowman, thing like that. Just to make people like afraid.
Because like, do you think that maybe they? Okay, so
Fear has been used as a tactic in like a lot of things. So
trying to keep them away from like maybe their test sites on weapons,
it
maybe.
could be a test. Yeah, it's something. I mean,
Because
I can't say I'm not the Russian government, but something. Obviously, something's going on.
yeah, and another thing too is when they finally got the
And then-
bodies and they buried them, right? They put them in
Mhm.
in zinc coffins, right?
Uh-huh.
Which keeps, if my understanding, zinc can keep radiation at bay on the bodies that were. And people that did see the bodies saw that they were dark tan colored. They had boils on them. Their hair, like I was saying, was like grayed out, right? So, a lot like from my like either they were
It's like severe radiation poisoning at that point, isn't it?
yeah, like if for them to go from having healthy, being healthy 20-year-olds doing this type of expedition, I mean, if it is a cover up like you're suggesting, I would say that they're covering up either that they're weapons testing.
Well, yeah, cover up or just some kind of like fear mongering kind of thing within their own country or whatever, to get people to go down crazy rabbit holes and come up with crazy stories to like distract them from something else. If they keep focusing on that, they're not paying attention to something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like one of the other viewers, they mentioned, that maybe a piece of the ice, could have, shaved off their, skin, cause that. But at the same time, like, how could it shave off eyebrows or
Remove a tongue.
or eyeballs out of their sockets, And so that's where it kind of like, so the abominable snowman, that's just like what some people, gravitate towards. That's not like the overall theory. The theory is,
I understand that. Clearly, I don't think that's it either. Like,
in my personal take, it could either be the UFOs that people were seeing from far off, right? And they got scared, they ran away, and the propulsion from the aircrafts flying so low, could have done internal damage to them, right?
What if the lights they were seeing weren't really like UFOs, but like something else that they were like doing?
Yeah, or it could have been like maybe the like if it was UFO, maybe they were hiding up in a tree too, right? They climbed up a tree, they set fire around that tree to just either to warm up or to distract whatever was chasing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they climbed up in the tree and hiding away from it. And so that caused whatever they're hiding from is the one that ripped out their tongues or their eye sockets. That's why people also think that it could be like a abdominal snowman, because the picture that they show, with the creature, that maybe that could be one of the teammates, right?
It looks like a big dude.
I mean, because you gotta think about it. If it's some like big, abominable snowman thing, you think it could just rip out somebody's tongue like just like that with like its finger? It'd probably like rip off their whole head or something.
Yeah.
Yep. Good
You know,
point.
I don't think it would just like go in with its like big ass fingers or like however, because it's supposed to be pretty big, right? What they
Yeah.
say on the
Apparently.
picture. So I don't think it would
Well,
be able to like, just, like,
from the pictures, you can kind of see that it is kind of tall, right?
yeah, I don't think it would be like able to like just go and like pull out somebody's tongue without just like
Yeah.
maybe
I'm
like
saying
ripping
like
half
the fine motor skills on something like that
Yeah, yeah, just
probably
like,
wouldn't be able to surgically remove a tongue, right?
yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So
Like it would
I
probably
agree with
rip off like
that.
the lower part of the jaw or like something, you know? Like I don't think it would just go and like pluck out a tongue or like pluck out somebody's eyeballs.
yeah.
I think one of the other people on the team took the tongue out to eat it.
You think so?
Yeah,
But
It's
remember,
possible.
they
That
were
makes more
only,
sense than anything else so far.
but they've lived.
I mean, yeah.
Remember, but they only lived between 5 to 8 hours after they broke out of the tent. So
How do you prove
Or-
that?
well,
or
from-
yeah, I mean, or it could have.
well,
Or
from
it could have been,
from
like,
like the
someone did it.
examination, maybe, because remember, also in the report, they never described the organs in the report,
Yeah.
in the incident report.
Mhm.
They only described the physical, their tongues being removed, eyebrows, but they never talked about like
Yeah.
their lungs or their organs inside or anything like that. So they
Yeah.
totally like did not, they just skipped over that. They're like, let's just skip over it. So something had to be enough
Yeah.
force to, they called it like a car crash, like if it just wrecked them, right? So it was a heavy blow. So avalanche maybe, but if it was an avalanche, they were still able to fucking run away. That's the thing. And they ran into the tree line, and the tree line would solve a lot of that.
Concussion kind of force.
Also, in the recent report, now this is where it kind of gets fishy. They negate the radiation. Where did that come from? Right. Number two, the avalanche that they're describing went downward, not even towards the tree line that they ran to. It went a totally opposite direction on the report that the avalanche.
You can completely cut that theory out and just throw it in the trash because that just
The avalanche theory?
makes no sense. Like no one, like that's just ridiculous.
well, and if you look at the pictures, right? So I'm showing them one of the pictures. This is the tree that they climbed up right here, and this is the wood that they burned up, and they climbed up this tree. So they had enough strength. One, if it was an avalanche, they would have been heavy and a heavy blow. They would have been somewhat injured. How do you climb up a tree 5 meters tall, like up 5 meters, right? This is where the other bodies were found, right over here.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that were further. Well, I will show the map again. These are the ones that were the 4 that were clustered up to each other. So they made it that far. And if you look at it, those tents don't look like an avalanche fell on them.
No.
The only thing I will
looks
say
like someone
is
just,
if
like,
like way up the mountain, which you said this was close to the top, so I don't think it is accurate, but just throwing it out there, like way at the top of the mountain, maybe an avalanche started, and then this is the very tail end of it. They ran away out of fear. That's the only way I can think an avalanche would be possible, but that does not explain any of the injuries, like tongues being removed.
Now, Clementry just said, I'm not entirely sure what animals are out there. Now, one, there was no damage, so I don't think that it could be animals. One, because there was no soft tissue damage. It was like eye sockets, tongue ripped out, eyebrow shaved, right? So mutilation, but not any type of biting from an animal. Also, they only found footsteps. Also, if it was an avalanche, how are there footsteps in the snow?
Yeah.
Explain that.
Yeah.
Explain
It would
that
have
right
to
there.
be after. It would have to be after the fact.
Yeah, but if an avalanche is going
have to be
on,
after.
and the avalanche is going on, they said that they ran down the slope, they ran to the tree line, and then 3 of them tried to track back to the tent, right? How's their footsteps going
In an
away?
avalanche, like an avalanche that covered an avalanche covered your tent, but you're gonna go back to it. Like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So whatever made them run away from the tent, right? In panic, they ran away from it.
Well, here's kind of going back to what your co-host over here said before, was how he thinks maybe someone like cut out the tongue to eat it. What
Yeah.
if like they were doing some kind of sort of testing, the government thing, whatever, or someone, right, or something was going on, and to cover it up, what was happening, somebody like ripped out their eyes, cut out their tongues and stuff like that, and then they made up the whole story, like maybe it's Bigfoot, like threw that out there just to like throw people off like track about what really happened.
Yeah. I mean,
Possible.
So like make people be like, oh, I wonder how that could have happened. Somebody got their eyes ripped out and their tongue, even though like no one was around, but maybe there were other people around that we don't know about.
yeah. Well, the thing is that these were people that were extremely into like going into
Like survival kind
like
of thing.
survivalist. They had training several times. You know what I mean? Like they've done other trips. This wasn't their first go around. If you were gonna exit, like if you had like an avalanche, I think that you would hurry up and grab some clothes, right? So what happened is something must have spooked them, right? Enough to make them cut up. They did okay. Well, one, they did not just clearly go through the opening of the tent. They opened it up from the inside. So something either was outside of the main opening, and they cut it open to get away from whatever was covering up the entrance to their tent, and they ran back. And this is the thing too, is I don't believe in the avalanche story because one, why would you go back to where
anybody buys that?
Why would you go back? They tracked back. That's the thing. They ran away. They tracked back, and they found the footsteps of going away to the tree line and going back.
Let's talk about that for a sec. Why? Anybody have any ideas why they would go back? To leave?
Well, either to get maybe more clothing, because those people ran out with socks and like one pair of shoes. Some people had sweaters and stuff on.
I mean,
well,
if
like
it's
Angela said though, like even in that temp, no matter what, like you're maybe taking off the coat, but you're not going down to like socks and underwear, man.
Yeah.
Right. They're like in their friggin' underwear and like below 0 temperatures while they're sleeping and stuff.
That's why I think that they were in a mass panic and they like
took their clothes off.
Well, here's the thing, like how like they like during World War II, stuff like that, where they were like the Nazis were like using like weird like weapons and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So what if like the Russians or whoever like used some kind of like weird like mind altering kind of weapons on them, and they just like went crazy in there and kind of just like lost their mind.
Well, one thing is, okay, so they found their clothing, right? Like in the tent area, they found some people had mixed match of clothing. The thing is, like when you get hypothermia, your body starts acting like you're super hot, so you start taking off clothing. But they didn't find random clothing laying all over the place, so they left the tent with bare minimal clothing, right? Mm-hmm. So like there's, but like, and that's the thing that also makes you ponder that like these are people that like did this multiple times, so like they were comfortable enough of feeling that they were secure on their location. Mm-hmm. That they were secure enough to wear bare minimal clothing in their tent. This isn't their first time doing this. If it was your first time doing this, I'm assuming that at all times you're going to be wearing heavy gear. You know what I mean? Right?
Yep.
Like just to feel like, but they felt safe enough to have bare minimal clothing.
I guess so.
And at the same time, what made them run off?
Well, that's what I mean.
Maybe that's the question that I'm trying to think of. And
maybe it's a weird like human experiment like that they were like doing on them or something.
Yeah. So what's your take on like extraterrestrials phenomenon, paranormal?
I mean, with the alien stuff like that, I mean, I've been all over the place with that recently. I've kind of gone to the thing where I don't believe in space as what we're being told is space.
What do you mean by
So
that?
like I don't think there's like a space on how they say like with plans and stuff like that, because I've been getting into like the whole, I don't know, just like some people, like I looked up, like saying how space goes against like the law of thermodynamics, all that kind of stuff and shit like that. But to me, I think like aliens aren't like from outer space per se,
Hmm.
but like I think it's like beings that are like from like other dimensions or like realms kind of thing is like my
Mm.
idea on that.
So is that why you like maybe you gravitate towards maybe not the abdominal snowman theory exactly, or Bigfoot, right?
Yeah.
But the whole idea, one of the theories was that they interdimensional traveled to that certain location, right?
Yeah, I definitely think there's like way, yeah, like
And why
some
there
kind of
was
portal.
light radiation around the campsite, and why maybe there was heavier
Yeah,
radiation on
could
the
be.
bodies
Could be
that were
accurate.
more mutilated, right?
Yep,
Because
like that's
also
yeah.
this is another thing too, is the bodies that were more heavily mutilated and had radiation on them were around the four bodies further down where the stream was, past the fire. The bodies that were further away from that like, so like the three could have ran up towards the forest line away from whatever was attacking them, and then
Or maybe something.
tracked back away from them while that being was running after the others.
Yeah, it could have started the fire too, some kind of way. Yeah, maybe it wasn't them that started it.
Yeah, true.
Know what I mean? I mean, that's what I've been going with aliens. Like, I don't feel like they're from outer space, but just like they go through like certain like portal like dimensions, and they like come here. So like some of them could look funny, some of them could actually like look kind of like us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's just like my belief on that.
all right. Well, Angela, there's so what I have on the screen right now kind of shows you exactly what individual was wearing. So mainly Yuri, he was wearing underwear, shirt, no shoes, wearing the knitted vest, and then the other Yuri was wearing underwear, shirt, no shoes. Sabrina took his sweater and tore a flap of his underpants to wrap her foot properly. So it seems like, they were taking a little bit of pieces of they were taking a little bit of pieces of clothing from some of the dead people too.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So it seems like one of them was better dressed than the previous found hikers. One felt boot on his right foot. But
probably
of
well
course,
dressed is the one.
and the thing is, at the time, they're going to be like, oh, they all died from hypothermia because it's in the cold, right? And,
well, yeah, I mean,
and they're never going to be like thinking about like, the other injuries, especially if they wanted, especially if the investigators, the superiors that were doing, like the initial investigators were doing it and saying like, none of this is adding up.
I mean, yeah,
you want me to sign off on something that's not adding up, and so then they just totally quit and then wash their hands away from it.
Yeah, that's like with a lot of things that goes on though. Like they just go for like the most obvious thing, and like, yeah, that's it. Case closed.
And that's another thing too. Angela's like mentioning too is that it could be maybe something got transported inside their tent, scared the shit out of them, and then they booked it. You know what I mean? That could be a possibility too. You know what I mean? Or maybe creatures got teleported around them and maybe outside the tent. I mean, like, if there was some portal or something, like, you don't know exactly where you're going to get teleported to. So one could have been outside, one could have been inside one of the tents, and they cut it open. So they had enough to rip open the tent, to run away. I mean,
it's tough because only two people have the radiation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, heavy
I mean,
radiation.
I read something about the radiation that like one of the people like worked like some kind of job that like kind of dealt with that stuff. I forget who. I like read that like
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing too.
yeah.
Is but the thing is that also the radiation was not just found on the clothing, but around the campsite.
Okay.
So, like, yeah, they could have worked at a power plant, you know, like a nuclear power plant or something like that.
Yeah, that's just what I saw. So I was thinking, maybe that could explain why it's like one or two of them. But
I remember,
yeah,
like this case happened in 1959, right?
Yeah.
And the government kept it a secret all the way up to 97, where people were still wondering about the like what happened during this case. Because
and then it came back now.
and then in 2009, more lawsuits were happening in Russia, and
Yeah.
and you got to remember in the early 90s, you know, that's when the fall of the Soviet Union happened, so a lot more stuff was being leaked about the KGB, all that. And then
That's why
in
I think some of it.
2009 is when more of these photos were starting to get released, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's why if all these photos are getting released later on, kind of makes it a little fishy. You know, that they could have easily kind of.
Well, no, the photos that were that's been shown were all from the archives of 97, released in 2009.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's a little ways afterwards, so I don't know.
You could kind of, I guess it could be suspicious, but you could also tell, like, if it was photoshopped.
Well, never know. I mean, who knows how long
good
technology's been around?
I guess you could do really good Photoshop, but I don't know. Like, so
that's what I mean. Like, you never know. Sometimes things could say that a certain thing, but it could just all be just.
That's the part of it. That's why this is like one of the top conspiracy theories out there, is because it kind of deals with a lot of different aspects. You know, it could be just natural causes. It could have been just avalanche, right? That's just simple avalanche, right? But where's this radiation coming from? Where is the radiation? That's my top thing. This is the thing that like is a head scratcher. Where the fuck is this radiation? You know what I mean?
That's tongue, dude. The tongue. Where'd the tongue go?
The tongues, the eyes, but the radiation. This is the key thing about this story: is the radiation. Is they only found light traces of radiation all around the tent and heavy on the bodies. On those two bodies, on the female and the male.
That's what makes me believe it's could be like some kind of like some kind of experiment with a certain weapon if it's heavily on like two people. You know what I mean? Because in the World War II, whatever, they're doing crazy experiments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like there's a lot of theories and like conspiracies about that. So I mean, you think that randomly stopped and like they weren't like testing stuff like later on, like that could possibly have been a thing, If it's
my only problem with that is like that's not an ideal testing location, in my opinion.
Never know.
Well, the thing is, it could be a good. Well, it's like when they did testing in Nevada, right, and Arizona deserts. Okay,
yes,
right. Well, in these areas, the only people that are around are the natives of that general location that were nomads. So the thing is that it could be good testing sites because no one's traveling around there. And then the government did testing on it, got exposed a little bit because they accidentally killed some of their citizens that were traveling around that.
Made up some crazy story about it.
And then they just like, boom, had it. And I mean, some of the things that have not been released. Now, this is the thing: was the diaries of the people that there were. Remember, so one of the things that I left out too was there were not only photography that was like taken, but actual diaries of their travel and where they were going. And also, one of the diaries was found near one of these bodies. So they had it on their jacket or something. and wrote notes, like a noting diary, you know what I mean? Like, or like a notepad or something. So what's on that too? You know what I mean? And why hasn't that been released? Maybe they had a count of, hey, something was chasing us that night. You know what I mean?
There's no way they're writing that down during all that.
I don't fucking know, but I want to know, or maybe, okay, maybe that's like going a little too much of a stretch, but maybe they actually documented, in the journal about this creature right here, or this being.
This could be a creature, could be maybe something following them, somebody, people,
Yeah, but maybe they documented that. You know what I mean? Maybe they documented in the journal. Why hasn't the journal been released?
Maybe one of them was like really
to this day has not been documented. They said that in the incident report they mentioned that they found the diary and cameras and stuff. But when they released the stuff, they released the photos, but not the diary. So the diary. Well, it's a journal report, right? It was like a journal report diary or something. They just mentioned in the report that they found a diary of like probably the incident, or not the incident, but of their travel and like reporting on the things that they were like doing. Right?
Could be like a red herring thing to throw out, like, oh yeah, there was a diary, and then everybody goes crazy, like, oh, what was on it? Maybe it wasn't a thing.
Yeah. So what's your So you're more of a skeptic than anything, from what I'm telling.
I believe a lot. I mean, skeptic as in like, I think a lot of the stuff we get told on a daily basis is like all mostly lies. I just believe everything's a lie.
Yeah.
It's like what I've gotten to, like, after, like, trust me, I've been in all those conspiracy things, stuff like that. And like sometimes with conspiracies, I think that some of them are just thrown out there on purpose to like make people like go down rabbit holes and just like lose their minds over stuff that isn't even real. But they just like throw it out there just to mess with people. Oh. Like, I just believe like everything's like kind of like a psyop thing with like governments and stuff like that. Yeah. But I'm not gonna really get into that, so that's like neither here nor there like right now. But yeah, I think a lot of stuff is like a lot of fakery and stuff like that, and it's just like peeling back like what you actually think reality is. That's just my take.
You think the moon landing was legit then?
No, I don't.
For another day.
Yeah, definitely another day for a different topic on that one. But
and I mean, you could go on for like a while just with all that stuff. But
that one might have to be a couple episodes.
Oh yeah, but pretty much this, this is the topic. I'm glad that you were able to join the conversation. I hope that you can be able to join more of the conversation later on. I'm glad that I hope that you can follow the channel and be a frequent listener. But we're gonna probably wrap up our thoughts about what we personally think about the story. I'm glad that you tuned in already, Dad. And
thanks for the take. That was kind of a curveball. I like that.
Yeah, it was a good take on what. It's good to have someone like throw a little curveball in there about like skeptic, government cover-ups, or it could be something else. And I'm glad that you were able to listen tonight. All right, well,
my pleasure. I'll let you guys finish what you're doing. Have a good night and everything.
All right, man. Well, finish the rest of the show. You have a good night.
All right. Bye.
All right, man. All right, so to wrap up the rest of this is what we kind of already discussed. I went through all the evidence, all the theories of what the government said, what people thought, what the people on the surrounding areas claimed that they saw during that night up in the skies. And now it just leaves it up to what your personal take. I'm going to let you... I'm going to take a quick break. I gotta go to the bathroom really quick. But when I come back, we'll discuss what your final summary of this whole case study is. Okay? I'll be right back.
All right.
I'll allow you to
think out loud. Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to hear his side probably before mine. I don't know, man. There's a lot to this. I think with the collar, that was good. That actually made a lot more sense than what's been presented here for sure. Avalanche, I mean, I think pretty much everybody here agrees that is not it. So for me, I mean, I guess I should wait for him to come back, but it's I don't know. The avalanche just I don't know. That's not it, I don't think.
All right, well,
I'll
I'm back.
dive into that.
I'm back. All right,
I was
so
just talking about how the avalanche is just it's not an option for me.
yeah, well, I agree with that that point of view, that it does not make
Is
sense.
there
It's not valid.
Anything you're leaving out at this point in time, or is that
No,
everything?
mainly I just gave you everything. I gave you
Okay.
that
The diary was an important detail.
the diary, yes, but that's the thing that I kind of wanted to leave to the end. Why hasn't that been released? That's the question.
Yeah, what?
They released everything else,
Yeah.
but that diary journal, could it have something to do with the being? You know what I'm saying?
Or just an explanation of what they were actually doing.
Yeah.
Hence military testing, possibly.
Yeah. And I'm going to leave it right up on this map, so if you guys want some refreshing. But anyone else that's out there that might be listening, join the channel. We will be taking some calls afterwards. I hope that anyone else that's still listening, join the calls. We would like your input about what your take might be on this particular subject, or if you might actually experience anything. But I'm going to let Meyer tell his point of view on what he thought of tonight's case study.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I did a lot of talking. I have a good generalization. I don't want to put my general, because I'm more of a believer that about extraterrestrials, like I said in the opening.
Yeah.
And I believe that there is unknown of the unknown that we will never know, right? Of any type of case. It doesn't matter what it is. There's always something that's left out, either on purpose or accident, right? Of trying to change the perception of the people's perception on the actual case, right? Or what's being perceived by everyone, right? Whether it be from the Oscars or moon landing or any type of political view, right? There's always a different take, right? I can give my opinion, but you're here because you're more of you need more facts to the case. Yeah. And I try to present everything that I know about this particular incident.
And that's the problem. This is a long time ago. There aren't details like, okay, how was the tongue removed? Can you prove that it wasn't a knife? You know, like those little details make a big difference, and we don't have them.
Well, that's the thing.
Or the diary, you know?
Because it seems like the medical examination of all the bodies was kind of quick. You know, they wanted this
government.
Like, so remember, the expedition happened late in January, right?
Yeah.
They did the search beginning of February, mid-February. They wrapped it up all in May. That's pretty quick for an investigation. That means something that they wanted it to go quick. We want this to wrap up and nothing, right? No real detailed of any explanation.
Well,
February to May.
A murder case. I mean, those usually last a long time.
Yeah, it was a murder case, and then they wrapped it like boom. They find. So let's get. Oh, we got a caller. Oh, we got another caller. You want to take this caller, or you want to finish your rap? You want to go into the caller?
I'm just gonna say real quick. I really like none of the things that have been presented like grip me, and I feel like it's that. I think the military testing thing definitely strokes my curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Extraterrestrial, sure, that's a possibility, of course. But nothing is really grabbing me because there's so many just little weird details, like the tent, the snow, the tongue missing. Like none of it makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. Is like there's so many. It doesn't matter how much you study about this subject, right? Even in the Moscow Times, right? Even after they try to present that model with the avalanche and talking about that was a cause, they still say there's still stuff that we can't explain, right?
Yeah.
The radiation
That's
is the
what's
thing that
wrong.
fucks me up with this thing. All right,
Well,
well,
that
I'm
too.
gonna we'll take this caller real quick. All right. Thank you for calling into Project Duplicity, Hutch.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. So, what do you think about? Are you calling in about the case? What's your thoughts mainly, or have you experienced anything about like the subject matter that we're discussing?
The subject matter. I barely got to tune in just a little bit. I live here in the hill country. All that good stuff. So,
What part of the country? You said hill country, but I mean, what part of the United States?
Yes, that would be Texas, and it's close to the south and all that good stuff, and I've been towards the border and all that good stuff, but I barely caught the last part of your segment, so
What was some of the segment that you caught?
it was it sort of the hills have eyes sort of thing?
Like,
or no?
or you mean like where the people's eyes were removed from their sockets?
Yes, that would be it.
Okay, yeah. All right, so what do you have for us, caller?
Yes, okay. Well, I mean, there's if you ever been down this way and all that good stuff, you get to see the sky really clear, and you get to see the stars. You get to see just no lights at all. If you live in the city, I mean, you don't get to see the sky at all. But
Yeah.
you get to sit in the country and do that whole thing, and you get to see every star. And some of these stars will move back and forth. And I've been on a back road one time where I was speeding fast as I could to get away from these stars. I was with my nephews and my wife and all that good stuff, and we just hauled ass, as fast as we could. And
Now, how close were these stars? You. I'm assuming. What route were you taking? Was it more of like hills? Were you away from? You said hill country, so I'm assuming more rural area, right?
yes, well, actually, it was just completely country. I mean, nobody around, a few houses probably, and it was
Were you
ranches.
like just away from just civilization totally?
Pretty much just, I mean, away. So it was different for sure. And looking in the sky, and my nephews, they noticed something, and then I started looking, and then the wife started looking, and I was like, wow.
And how fast were you traveling about?
uh I got up to probably about 90 or so. Probably shouldn't have, but yes.
Wow. And this thing was it? How close were you? Like, was it like very noticeable? Like you were able to distinguish that it was actually not a star, and was it keeping track with you, or what was the occurrence of this object that you were seeing in the night sky that made you speed about 90 miles an hour?
Yeah, 90 plus, and this is in the hills too. So I mean, these are swervy roads, so it's not easy to do that,
So
but
to say it very lightly, you were shit scared.
Running for your life.
You're running for your life, kind of type of thing. You were scared.
I was nervous.
You're very nervous. Okay.
Definitely.
And are you like
Definitely.
typically a nervous person at all? Like this
Not
is something
for the most part.
but this is something that was out of your realm, and you clearly did not know what it was, right?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
It was
Continue on, man. Tell us more about this object that you saw.
Okay, yeah, definitely. It was up there. It was a brighter star, and as driving, it would be at one point, and then it'd whip around to another point.
And what do you mean by like whip around? Did it like go from? Was it when did you first see it on the more left side in front to the right? Was it?
It was to the right, and it was above the hills. So above the hills, it would be over to the left, and then it would whip over to the right, and then it'd kind of go up a little bit. And it was just like a star. And this was before drones were ever out there. I mean, they may have been out there, but it wasn't a drone.
What year was this?
This was probably what 2000. Jeez.
Would say like about early 2000s?
Yeah.
Like before, like maybe like what, Y2K?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so like maybe 99, 2000, around that. Yeah, so it wouldn't really be. I would say it wouldn't really be any. I mean, like, drones were being developed around that time, but not majorly used like they are today.
Yeah, not hardcore drones to where they could just do what it was doing. So it was it was definitely weird. It was one of those things, and going through the back roads in the hill country and being that worried, and I'm not that worried of a person, about things, but I was like, oh my God.
And how were your wife and you said your nephews? How were how were they reacting?
Scared.
And who was the first person to actually spot the object?
It was my nephew, and he was looking up, and he sort of noticed a little bit from the front part of the glass, or the front part, and he was just kind of like, okay, look at that zipping around. And then my other nephew noticed, and then the wife noticed, and then I was like, oh, okay. And I'm just driving, I'm looking at the road, I'm not looking at the stars or anything like that,
But you must have so when you were driving, were you seeing it like go from their point of view across over? So was it in a tracking motion, like where it was tracking you, or what?
Tracking motion for sure.
So it was keeping up with your speed and following your motions of the automobile.
Yes. The faster I went, the faster it followed. And then
how close did it come to the vehicle? Like if you had to give it a distance, so like was it a football field far when of tracking, or maybe 2-3 football fields far, like enough to notice that it wasn't just some type of imagination type of effect?
No, not at all. I mean, it was stars. I mean, that's what it was. That's how far away it was.
So you're saying that it could have been, but if it was tracking motion that you're saying, it has to be at least within our atmosphere, like a plane would be, or was it a little lower than a plane?
No, I definitely no planes, and so.
But it was so bright that it was able to kind of keep up with your speed and track you and follow you.
Definitely zip and zag. That's what it would do. It was something different, and if you ever come down to South Texas, where my friend lives.
Wait! You said South Texas?
Yes.
That's very interesting, because our previous caller, Meyer, right? Bryn, she mentioned something about South Texas.
Yeah.
Was this area around? What area did she say, Bryn? What was the location?
It's like a rural kind of deal, similar to.
But she said, did she say hill country?
Yeah, she did.
But now that makes it interesting, because if you're saying hill country, and the previous caller is also was also Sand Hill Country. Bryn, that is very intriguing right there, is because it's two of the same locations, and from my understanding is a lot of these UFO activities that go on are typically around the same geological areas.
Yeah.
And so Hutch, and so how long of a distance was this thing tracking you guys? Was it for like a minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 20? Or did it go the distance, like all the way until you hit civilization?
Distance. It's going for speed. It was.
He's doing a cake reference. Okay.
No, it was following for sure. I mean, it was the deal. I mean, it zipped and zipped and zipped, and then it zipped off, and it's no joke.
Did
I
it?
mean,
So like the.
I
Sorry?
hate to reference it. I hate to reference it as just the small talk is zip and zip and zip, but it was just so weird.
Well, one of my encounters of actually viewing a UFO. It was my brother and I, and my mom was driving. It was dusk. We were coming back from California, and it was around the location of Area 51. And we saw a bunch of helicopters, right, that were in the night sky. And then we would see this one object that would be zipping. It would like zip through the skyline away from the line of helicopters. This is a line of helicopters, at least like 7 helicopters that were in a flying motion, like if they were escorting something, and something would zip past them and zip back. Zip past them, zip back, right? And this was around a time, and we took a picture of it back in the day, with my brother's like digital camera. Like when they first came out, he got one for his birthday, and so we took a picture, and everyone's just said, "Oh, that's just a blur." You know what I mean? But it wasn't as detailed as what cameras are today. But that was one of the instances where it would just zip off and zip back, like if it like broke the laws of physics, of how fast and agile that it could move and split through the sky. And so it sounds like your UFO experience that you're talking about is very similar, where it would just zip in, zip out very quickly without any just very. It's like if it was in a flash of a blink of an eye.
So, like you're saying, it in no way, shape, or form was using like propulsion, which is what we know for pretty much all movement today.
Yeah.
Did you ever see like where? Okay, so some UFO counters, they see the bright light, right? And then when it zips away, it disappears because it kind of changes its trajectory, where you can't see its propulsion system, which UFOs are always like their propulsion system is underneath the aircraft, right? So when it goes away and zips off, it's like if it disappears, and then when it zooms back, then you see the light again. Was it more like that, or were you constantly always just seeing the light of the object?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. I mean, there's no sort of streams or anything like that. It's just a dot and a dot, and that's it.
I mean, he's almost making it sound like it's like a star that's way out there that's tracking him.
Definitely.
So beyond our
beyond atmosphere and all that. Yeah.
So it could be
Which is even crazier.
Yeah. But
and that's what it is. And whenever I was at my friend's house, he lives out in the country. We
is this like a very similar area?
Pretty similar. I mean, not too far away from. And we would sit there, and he would say, "Hutch, look at this. Watch." And I was like, "That's a plane." And he goes, "No, watch." And then all of a sudden, it would move real quick.
Hmm.
and that was every other night.
Every other.
I
Wow.
Are there any
promise.
like
I
military
promise.
bases or anything over there?
No, but there's craters and things out there too.
Craters from what?
Yes, from whenever we all started over, I guess.
Well, I know that Texas was a heavily prehistoric area, and in the thing, like in South Texas especially.
Because yes, we have dinosaur prints and creek beds and things like that.
So
You
you're
can
mainly,
find,
yeah, well, for meteorites mainly, craters.
yeah,
Yeah, I know.
well,
I know that, like in South Texas, I know that there is. But in Meyer, to speak, there's two Air Force bases that are Central Texas, which is going to be in San Antonio, and in Austin. And South
yeah,
Texas in the rural areas that I believe that you're talking, which is probably is it below San Antonio?
yes,
Yeah, there's no Air Force base around that location. There's private airports there, but there's not going to be any type of major airport or Air Force base in that general location.
Okay.
yes, definitely. But yeah,
And
there's
is this the only experience that you've ever had with the unknown phenomenon with UFOs, or have you had any other type of experience that you would like to share with us?
no.
No, that's the only one. I mean, it could be paranormal, it could be anything. If you
Oh,
like to
the
share with us.
the paranormal is a different story too. And we live in South Texas and all that good stuff.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but as far as it goes, is yeah, the craters and things like that over here, that they're crazy. I mean, you can see if you go to the landscape, you can see where the craters landed, and that's why we have hills, and that's you can see yeah, it was pretty crazy.
What's your personal take on of UFOs and extraterrestrials? Are you a believer of the unknown, the paranormal, the unexplained?
Oh yeah.
And
And when it comes down to even the paranormal, yeah, it's a uh, ghost and things like that.
and that
Or
was
not
and that
ghosts,
was
I
your
guess.
and that's your major sighting, was just you and your nephews, your wife driving and having a UFO track you guys?
Pretty much, and then over at my friend's house, we could just watch the same thing that we saw. Me and my wife and nephew,
They were just doing maneuvers in the sky with you and your friend.
and zip away.
What type of what type of maneuvers are you talking about? You're talking about like something that can't be explained with the current fighter jets that we have today?
No. Well, I'm not for sure. I mean, fighter jets. I
Well,
think they would.
well, can they
Uh,
like? What are you talking about? Like when they're zipping, can they like stop at a dime and then like rotate and move on? Or I mean, like fighter
no.
jets have to keep on going in a straight line, and they can't stop and just do a. They can do a left right and maneuver pretty quickly, but they can't do something at a stop and then rotate, turn, and then just float straight to the left. You know what I mean? They could turn to the left, but they can't just like stop, go left.
Oh, the only thing they do is put out chemtrails.
Yeah.
Another episode.
Yep. So, well, I'm glad that you were able to listen into majority of, or I hope that you were able to listen to majority of what we discussed today. I'm glad you're a caller. I hope that you can continually listening to every episodes that we have every Friday from 8:30 and on, depending on how much material we have. I'm glad that you're called in today. It was very interesting hearing your story. But if you have any other stories of any topic that we have, feel free to always call in. And
paranormal. I could tell you some stories, but
Yeah, let's hear that.
anyways,
yeah,
just
man. I
you
mean,
know,
like, well, we already we already wrapped up our case study. You can stay on and talk, but a little more
I'll
if you
try.
want.
I'll check. It's cool. Just listen to some Rancid and some Social Distortion.
Uh-huh.
Just do that and live life and look at stars.
Look at
They
the
move.
stars. Okay, they move. They move. All right. Well, we'll keep that in mind. And anytime that we have any type of topic that might pique your interest, just even to chime in or might relate to any other things that you have, just always feel free to call. Well, I'm glad that you were able to reach us, Hutch, and
I
you
appreciate that.
have a wonderful night. Thank you for
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in.
I enjoyed talking to you guys. Just have a good night and stars and beyond.
All right, man. Thank you, and I hope that you end up being a believer. Have a good night.
I am a believer.
Wow.
That was a pretty interesting phone call.
Yeah.
All right,
You know,
man.
for every story that I've actually heard from like somebody that I've spoken to like that, or like my grandma, they all kind of sound similar.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, it's kind of like the thing is like if you think about it, if it is actually from an outside source, right? Like they're the anthropologists, right? They're studying us. We're not studying them. You know what I mean? They're studying us. It's like if we went and studied the safari, right? We're studying animals, right? Or the last human beings that we actually did heavy studies on was Papua New Guinea, right?
Yeah.
For anthropology. They're the anthropologists. They're studying us. They're coming down here. They're focusing on us, right? So that is the pondering question. Are they out there? Are we alone? You know,
Are you
and
having fun?
yeah, this is a good topic. This is like a really fun, interesting topic. And the thing is, I want to get back to what you think about this one case study. Is this something that you think is an open-ended question?
What do you mean?
Is it you can't solve this. In my personal opinion, you can't solve this, right? I believe that
Not enough information.
It's either a government cover-up, right? They try to cover up something, or extraterrestrial, or it could be. There's three things. I don't know about the abominable snowman. I don't know what the fuck that creature is. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
Sorry, viewers. But I don't know what that creature is of that photo. Was that something that was implanted to throw us off the track? Right?
Does it look like something not human to you?
It looks, I don't, oh, it looks weird. It kind of gives you the creeps looking at it. I hate looking at that picture, man. Like, just to be honest with you. Like, it gives me the creeps.
Really?
Yeah, because like it's the unknown. It looks humanoid. It's humanoid, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like, you know, an animal that we know of. It doesn't look.
I don't think it's.
It doesn't look like a human that we like. It doesn't look like one of the travelers. Like, I will go back to one of the pictures of all the travelers.
Yeah.
Does that look like there's
one picture? There is one picture that looks like his body shape could be the snowman picture. So
this one?
Yeah, so that one with
which
the three people that are close together, like kind of by the snow.
Right over here? Maybe it could be one and it's just a distorted picture, right? Right?
No, not that one. The other one where they're facing the camera.
This?
I gotta wait for the delay here. No, not the one in the trailer. It would help if I had the pictures.
Yeah. Well, I just showed all the pictures, dude.
Yeah, it's the one like two before the actual the guy that we're talking about.
But those are investigators.
Those
are all-
aren't the actual people.
Those aren't those are the investigators. Those aren't the people.
So that guy in the middle in the back, that's very dark. His body shape kind of looks like the other guy.
Yeah, these are the investigation pictures. The
Okay.
pictures with the snowman, when I say like the abdominal snowman, is from the camera roll that they had. So there's 3 pictures that I have. The first picture, the second picture, and that third picture are from their camera rolls. There's more of the camera rolls, but it's just a lot of their faces and them at the cottage and shit, right? But mainly, so my personal take on this is I think that it's something from an unnatural force that isn't from this world, that either could be interdimensional. I'm not ruling that one out, because if it was a portal, that's why it would create light radiation probably around the campsite. And if it was a being that came out of that type of portal, it could end up, if it attacked the 2 people, ripping its fucking eyeballs out and tongues, why they had heavy radiation on them, right?
Yeah.
And then the other one is, I think that it's unforeseen phenomenon that happened because of the orbs that people from far away from the incident was able to see, orange orbs floating around, UFOs, right? And then maybe that's the reason why they got scared, they ran. And they also had, I don't believe the government's take on it, that it was avalanche. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that it was an avalanche.
No, nobody.
So I leave it. It's an open ending. That's why I'm saying it's an open ending case, because we'll never know the true take of this, because we don't have any of the survivors, so they can't tell us distinctive. Also, the government tried to cover it up, right? Because they put this file away, they put the photos away. They haven't released any of the diary. Maybe the diary was not worth mentioning because maybe it was all watered up, right?
Yeah.
But why not show the pictures of the diary of it being watered up if it wasn't so important? Okay.
Right.
Also, that's why I think that it's something not from this world, and I'm going to leave it at that. And what's your personal take on this whole subject matter and everything that we discussed tonight, from the callers to this particular case?
Well, like I said, I think it's interesting that most people's encounters in reference to the callers seems really similar. As we progress through more and more episodes, I think that'll become more apparent. Maybe. I mean, who knows what other people have encountered, but in regards to the past incidents, I think for me personally, I mean, sticking to more of a factual and what I know, it makes more sense for it to be some sort of like testing or accident. Maybe trying to get it covered up. It's hard to say for sure, but just the aspects of radiation and the nature of a lot of their injuries can stem from radiation. But there's the details like the tongue that it keep going back to, where it's like, okay, that's such a curveball. I don't have an answer for it at all. So for me, it's just, military testing maybe, or, I guess it could be something out of this world that brought radiation to them. It's really tough to say, but definitely not an avalanche. And for me, snowman, creature, whatever, that doesn't seem to be the case either.
Yeah. So you're in somewhat of agreement with me that this case isn't closed like they try to claim in the recent article in the Moscow Times.
It's not an avalanche, man. I mean,
And number 2, That's why I say that it's an open-ended case, because of the realm of the mystery, from the radiation to the tongue being removed, the eyes, them running out, breaking through the tent. You know what I mean? If it was if it was, and them going back, tracking back. So I think this was a good start for the show. It kind of hit every single type of paranormal, except for ghost, right? But we'll be diving into ghost later on as we progress more into the more paranormal aspects, right? The unexplained, right? Mm-hmm. So next week, we're going to be diving into Lights Over the Phoenix. It happened in 98. It was a famous case. It was actually televised by the governor of Arizona, and it was something that panicked, like where they called DC asking questions, what is going on? Okay, so we're going to be diving in that next week. Each week is going to be a different case study. Anyone that's listening, I appreciate that you guys listening. If you have any particular questions, or if you have any other case studies that you want us to look into, post them in the general chat in the Discord channel. Hit that follow button. Join the Discord. The more that we grow this community, the better we can have the more of an understanding of the unknown and the mysteries of the world, and be able to have an open discussion about these discussions, and not being afraid of backlash from people that might think that you're a fool. You know, like Bryn, she didn't believe that other people would believe her story, you know, and scared of the fact that, you know, coming out more about those incidents, you know. And this is a subject that some people might be afraid to talk about because they're afraid of the backlash that they might get. And we want to make this a safe topic for everyone to talk about, and to feel safe that to open up about their own stories. And you can be a part of this community. If you have any takes or anything, feel free, post them in the general chat. We're always willing to look at any other topics that you might be interested in, and we'll be willing to look at it. I'm gonna allow Meyer to do a little last thoughts about our overall project, Duplicity.
I mean, for me, I'm really excited for next week for sure. That's one of the bigger ones out there. So that one I'm really, really excited about. It was really interesting talking about what we did today. I think it would not be surprising if we actually came back after we learned a whole bunch, as I'm sure we will through this process, and maybe re-examine it and change our opinion on it. Maybe get some more callers as well and other opinions. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just really excited to see what we can hear from other people. Like I said, you know, even though I am kind of a skeptic overall, I still also really get into it, get the goosebumps and the hair on the neck and all that. Just hearing some of the stories. And last thing I wanted to say is it's just really cool, like hearing these people talk and share their story, and they're so defiant, and you know, like they truly believe that this is real. So it's not like you're watching something on Netflix that could totally be scripted. Like this is really real. So
these are people that we don't even know, you know, that were gravitated towards this channel, which is amazing. We just Meyer and I just came up with this idea about having a discussion about the unknown, and I appreciate everyone that listened in and telling their take on everything. And Meyer, it's pretty interesting that we, like you were saying, we could end up coming back to discussing the Dyatlov Pass Incident, the Devil's Pass.
I think we have to. Like, it's not even put to bed. You know?
Yeah, it's not put to bed. It's still an open-ended question. What could have happened? And this is the things that we will be looking into. And we're always open for any suggestions out there. You know, this is our first episode, kind of pilot. I hope that everyone enjoyed it, and you guys have a great weekend. And I'll allow Meyer to have the closing ending on any other thoughts that he might have.
I don't have any other thoughts, but thanks for everybody chatting in Twitch and the calls in Discord for sure. That was definitely a major part of the fun for me. I'm excited to hopefully see some of the same faces next week. I think that's going to be a good one. So you guys better be there.
And next week we're going to be working a little more on so that you could be able to see Meyer's face too. We're working on that. It was kind of like I threw him in a loop a little bit of, it was like we talked about this 3 days ago, and I kind of went way above the aspect of just I threw him in for a little bit of a loop.
He's excited.
But I think one last thing. What was the most intriguing call that we had that you liked, that really gravitated towards your idea of trying to explain the unknown to you?
Most intriguing?
Yeah.
Definitely the combing the hair. I have never heard that one before.
Oh, Bryn's. Yeah, that was very interesting to me. I really liked her story. Well, two takes on that one, right? It was one, it was the translucent of the being, right? Just being able to, you threw rocks at this guy, disappeared, right?
Right.
And
Teleported.
also number two, teleported. And number two, the in the age before science fiction, right? That's what's so nutty about it. Before going up to space or anything like that, any mentions about space, and like she said, when she ended up getting a TV or seeing a TV in color, it was still cowboys and Indians, right?
Well, and you heard her voice. There's defiance in there. You know, it's real.
Yeah, and she felt, I don't say ashamed. She just felt like no one believed her and her friend's story, you know, and that, you know, sad about her friend. May they rest in peace. He never got to relay his point of view too. So it's always, it's pretty good that we got to hear that side of it, and even with Already Dead, you know, being a very skeptical person, you know, also being able to give us a different type of take on it, you know what I mean, on what the possibility of this one case could be. And even Hutch,
that was good.
Mentioning of them tracking, which still relates back to a little bit about this story. Everything that like the callers called about hit these marks 100%. You know, like Already Dead, conspiracy theory, government cover-up, so on and so forth. Hutch talking about UFOs, tracking, you know what I mean, like how the people were pretty much being followed in the woods, if you could take it like that. And how, and Bryn, how she discussed how the creature was able to teleport. Maybe that's how it went from went into the campsite and went all the way to where the last 4 bodies were found, dead.
Well, that's what Angela and Twitch chat had also suggested, that maybe it teleported within the tent, and that would explain them basically being ripped to shreds.
Yeah.
And radiation. So that was a good point.
Yeah, that was a good point. All right, well, we're going to end it there. Always like the feedback, Meyer. It was a pleasure. And you guys have a wonderful weekend.
Take care.
All right.